my name is Marissa Saley, and I'm a sports business major.
I'm Laura Buchanan, and I'm an education major.
I'm Alyssa Wolf, and I'm an exercise science major.
I'm Amanda Davies, and I'm an education major.
My name is Clinton Simmons, and I'm a political science major. And today we're going to be talking about the injustice in America and how to spread diversity awareness to the LGBTQ plus community.
Alright, so first we're going to discuss the problem with the LGBTQ plus with discrimination in the workplace. The disciplinary effects and the problems and how we contribute to the solution. So we said education, exercise science, political science, and sports business. Then we'll go into our action plan and our ally training with the inclusion activity. And then we'll debrief and have questions.
Okay, so to start, kind of where our problems stem from, this past summer in Orlando, there was a shooting at Pulse nightclub, which kind of personified the issues that the LGBTQ plus community has been facing for decades and centuries. So in light of those events, we decided to kind of turn our gaze on discrimination against LGBTQ plus people in the form of job loss and harassment and assault.
All right, and according to Graybill and Proctor, LGBTQ+, they're more at risk for mental and physical health issues, and this can really affect environments where they work at, and also like going into places such as a hospital.
So first we're going to talk about education. And so one of the main problems that you see in education with the LGBTQ plus community is that there is an increased risk of physical and mental health problems. And that was done by Pascal, Palmer, Cole, and Graytech, and also another study also done by Ferguson. And these are health issues such as higher levels of stress, anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and also physical injuries from bullying, if it is physical bullying. And then this definitely has an effect on a student's academic performance. They're less likely to be focused in school, they're less likely to want to attend school, so their attendance rates go down, and also their grades. So obviously this really impacts a student's ability to perform in schools. And along with the increased risk of physical and mental health issues, there's also an increased risk of suicide and suicide ideation, which are the thoughts behind doing suicide. And that was done by Mueller, Aberton, and Lathan, and also another study done by King. And basically all this is a buildup from what I had earlier stated earlier from the physical and health issues. And also a lot of it comes from non-acceptance from family and friends, and they feel like their life is worthless, and so then they think about committing suicide or they actually commit it. And also there's a huge appearance of bullying and harassment and discrimination. And as you can see, this was done in like 3 different studies by Taylor, Meyer, Mays, and Cochran. So obviously it's very apparent in today's school systems. And there's been studies that found that LGBTQ plus students report incidents of bullying occurring daily. So they go to school every day and they experience this bullying, which then can lead to these mental health issues and wanting to commit suicide. And it occurs more in middle and high school than in elementary school. And a lot of this is due to gender norms and gender lines really being solidified, and that pressure to fall with the boys acting like boys and girls acting like girls. And also it states that 44% of teachers do report hearing derogatory comments towards this community. So teachers are hearing it, but they're not really doing anything to stop it. So now Amanda's going to talk more about problems that you see in the field of education.
Alright, so going on with the problem in education, according to Israel and Hackett, in their findings, they talked about that when interviewing different teachers that they felt comfortable that they would be able to teach and talk about this, the LGBTQ plus community, but they were, that they'd be comfortable about it, but they felt inadequate and had a lack of training on these certain topics. So with that going hand in hand, with the training opportunities plus with the desire to learn more about it, there was just a problem with both of them, because there's people that want to learn more about it and want to be able to be familiar and knowledgeable on this topic, yet there were very limited training sessions and different things that the teachers could attend. According to Sue, the lack of training and knowledge opportunities and harassment go hand in hand. So there needs to be changes in our school to make all students feel more comfortable at school. So with students and families, as future teachers, we are taught that the relationship with the family life at home plus the students, that students will excel more in school. So if the family and the home life is on the same page as the teacher and what's going on with their student, that more learning is going on and it's a better environment for the students. So there are also studies on the fact that parents felt, or the LGBTQ plus as parents felt that there was a disconnect and that they were not, they were devalued in this whole situation in community. According to Gates, there's about 6 million LGBTQ plus parents and about 14 million students with LGBTQ plus parent families in the United States. So LGBTQ families often feel left out and disinvolved in these about their differences. And the LGBTQ plus parents face struggles concerning family nights, events, and just different things at school. So with teachers feeling, with families feeling disconnected from the school, that also hurts the student as well in the education field. As well as Herbert states that there is a noticeable lack of this content in the curriculum. So if students are being taught this, or if they have it at home and they can't really relate to the content that the teachers are talking about, then there is another disconnect in the students don't feel like what is being taught to them relates to their personal life. And another thing is, teachers, you want to be able to relate to every single student and make sure you're hitting home so that they can connect to what is being taught so they are learning.
So some of the solutions that the field of education proposes is training of staff and teachers. And an example of this was done by Riggs, Rosenthal, and Smith Bonahue in 2011. And these are college professors who noticed a lack of openness and awareness of LGBTQ plus problems in their college class. So what they did was they split the class up into an experimental group and also a control group. And with the experimental, they taught them awareness of problems this community faces and ways that they can be an ally. And with the control group, they just taught about multicultural education. And by the end of this session, there was a huge increase in awareness and tolerance and open-mindedness with the experimental group, and the control group just stayed the same. So that right there proves that training and education does work and is effective.
Okay, so
So when Hurwitz was talking about the lack of education on this in the curriculum, they talked about simple ways that you can fix that. So one of those reasons is, especially in young, early elementary schools, that instead of reading a book with, a mom and a dad and a daughter and a son, an easy way to fix that, or not fix that, but include that, is add another book that has 2 moms and a daughter or son, or 2 dads at home. Just so, especially if you have students that have that different family style at home, that you can relate to those students as well. And according to Tyson, research states that the only way that teachers can address this topic in school is by developing and adapting to a multicultural curriculum that is the LGBTQ plus inclusive and states, and start that as early as early elementary school.
Alright, so the problem for exercise science, so exercise science is a general foundation on health and fitness. So GLMA of 2001 talks about the bullying in fitness facilities. So a lot of fitness facilities are non-accepting of transgenders. Planet Fitness, however, they do accept the LGBTQ community. However, on CNN of March 2015, a woman who was a heterosexual, she filed a lawsuit against Planet Fitness about a transgender woman walking into her bathroom and she felt uncomfortable. Planet Fitness fought back for this, and this is a very good solution. However, the transgenders still do not feel comfortable in a fitness facility. And this can lead to OCD, obsessive compulsive disorders, so a lot of eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, disordered eating, which can actually cause obesity, and they're more prone to an unhealthy lifestyle and unhealthy life choices. And another big issue is the lack of knowledge and support in clinical settings, so lack of health care, and according to the Center for American Progress, 48% of transgender adults avoid medical care. and they don't have health care, compared to the LGB, who has 29% and 17% of heterosexual adults. So the solution is education. So this is definitely for medical professionals. Even like going back into like medical school, and prior to that, just many diversity classes and a lot of medical terminology. And actually, according to a survey on discrimination against the LGBTQ+ by Lambda, transgender adults experience higher rates of health care because providers are unaware of their health needs. And the fact that transgenders are aware of this does not make them feel welcome into hospitals. So that's why training of like all hospital fitness faculty staff should incorporate this. And just accepting to everyone, adapting to the environment and having a welcoming environment.
So political science, there are several ways in which this department and discipline contribute to the problem. So one of the first things that's obviously contributing to it is the laws against LGBTQ+ freedoms, such as the recent transgender bathroom issues in North Carolina. Fortunately, we were able to see a solution come out of that, but in the very beginning it was very harmful and there was not a lot of progression for the community in that aspect. There's also a court case, Bowers versus Hardwick, in 1986, where a man was having sexual relations with another man, and a police officer was investigating their home under a warrant for something else, and it was in Georgia, and the police officer arrested them on grounds of sodomy, which was illegal in Georgia at the time. And the Supreme Court of Georgia and then the Supreme Court of the United States found that Georgia is allowed to regulate laws on the conduction of sexual relations within their state. So this was a huge setback for the LGBTQ+ community. And also Proposition 2 and Proposition 8 in California, which address the marriage of same-sex couples. Proposition 2 took away the right for same-sex couples to get married after it was already legalized. And Proposition 8 said that any same-sex marriage that has been consummated is no longer valid, and it kind of just invalidated all the marriages that California performed beforehand. There's also the issue of traditional conservatism in politics. In politics, there's two sides of the spectrum, conservative and liberal. There's a lot of other factors that play into it, but those are the two main ideologies. So on the more conservative side, you're more likely to hold values against LGBTQ+ community. And just since same-sex marriage was legalized in June of 2015, there were 113 anti-LGBTQ+ bills introduced since legalization of same-sex marriage, just in that short year-and-a-half time frame. So how we contribute to the solution. Political science does more than just law, it also plays into the politics and our rights as citizens. So in June of 1969, there was a club in Greenwich, New York called Stonewall, the Stonewall Inn. So the police had been repeatedly coming to this club, it was a gay club, and arresting people based on the grounds that they were gay or transgendered, and they just kept coming back and attacking and harassing these people. So one night in June of 1969, the people stood against, and it's a riot famously known as led by drag queens, that stood against the police and rioted against the government for oppressing them. And every month, or every year in June, we see pride parades and pride days, and this stems from the original Pride riot at Stonewall. So that plays into political science because we have a right to freedom of speech and a right to protest the government and petition the government, and this plays into that because we're protesting for our equal rights and we're protesting against being harmed and oppressed by our government. There's also been a lot of developments through legislation and case law. Lawrence versus Texas goes hand in hand with the Bowers versus Hardwick case I just mentioned. A very similar thing happened in Texas where a man was having sodomy with another man, and the police walked in under investigation of something else and caught them and arrested them because sodomy was illegal in the state of Texas. They fought all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, and the Supreme Court ruled that the state was not allowed to interfere with the lives of private individuals under the amendments of the Constitution. In 2015, there was also Obergefell versus Hodges, which is the case that legalized same-sex marriage across the country. The Supreme Court finally stepped in and made their decision. It was a 5-4 decision, which shows there's still a lot of content with the issue, but it was legalized across the nation. And there's also been a lot of various harassment policies where LGBTQ plus people have been incorporated into the law to guarantee that they're not being discriminated against or harassed unfairly, which leads into the next discipline.
So through the lens of sports business, I'm able to take an approach through more of a human resources perspective. Most of my examples will stem from athletics and professional athletes, as we see that that is a major issue for the LGBTQ plus community. And when I was doing my research, I saw that there was a big overlying problem of the fear of harassment in the coming out process. I found there was two kind of subcategories of this giant harassment. One of them is specific stereotypes. One example is Arisa Tuulo. He was a Green Bay Packers defensive lineman, and in 2002 he came out to ABC News and he had performed an interview with them and announced that he was gay. He told ABC News that he was nervous to come out to his teammates because the amount of gay slurs and different languages that was used that he found offense to. Another one of these subcategories was a negative effect on businesses. The former CEO of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Kevin McClatchy, he was there from 1996 to 2007, announced that he was gay, and he said that he was afraid of how the fans would react and how it would affect his business. So kind of some solutions for this. Ganderson reported in 2013 that mainstream media must report members of the LGBTQ plus members the same way that they would a heterosexual male or female. So they must report with the same intensity and integrity. An example of this is Kerry Rhodes. He is still in the closet per se, but he does not get the attention that a heterosexual athlete would get. The mainstream media tends to report on Tiger Woods scandals, Ray Lewis domestic assault. But when Kerry Rhodes is, caught with his lover, he doesn't get any attention. It makes them feel like their lives are not as important as their counterparts. Another solution to this problem is removal of homophobic slurs. So there's a direct correlation between the usage of slurs and one's decision to come out. 84% of gay male athletes choose to stay hidden with their true sexuality or their gender identity due to the amount of slurs, and 82% of gay female athletes will do the same. Syed Ziegler, he's the co-founder of Outsports.com, was quoted saying, "Every single athlete that we have written about in the last 15 years has experienced almost the same exact thing. There's an atmosphere and a language that is used. But when the LBGT athlete comes out, people apologize and change their behavior. Because what is behind the behavior is not homophobia, but it's learned language." So, Syed in this article, he reported that in 2012, Kobe Bryant had a call made against him in a game. Pardon my language, but he turned to the ref and said, "You effing faggot." He was not implying that he was a homophobic athlete, but it's something he learned subconsciously through the locker room.
So as you can see that LGBTQ plus harassment and discrimination is apparent in many different types of fields. For example, the political science field makes an impact on all the other fields by telling us what is legal and illegal and making the court cases. The sports, business, and exercise science fields are closely related. They show how there is a pressure for conforming to the social norms, how there is a pressure to be masculine if you're a male, and also the fear that this community has to come out, and also the fear that is for the athletes to have an LGBTQ plus teammate. And so as you can see that these are all seen in the fields. And education kind of brings it all together. It provides ways and methods to overcome these fears and these discriminations. It shows how the discrimination starts at a very young age and is learned throughout the years. And it also tells you what ways work best to educate employees. So now we're going to talk about our action plan, and that is allied training. And this action plan does incorporate all of our different fields, and it really works because it could be modified and adapted to fit any types of situation that it may be in. So while we're getting ready for the next thing, I'm going to pass out just a flyer of the agenda that we would have for allied training for different types of employees in the work field. So our action plan is to go into different businesses around the area and to educate their employees and all of their staff and faculty on how to be an ally.
All right, so first we're going to take a little quiz, it's a questionnaire, just to talk about, or just to get you thinking about the different, so go ahead, you don't need to put your name on it, but go ahead and take this.
So what we're going to do is actually run through the training and the session that we would do and implement in these different businesses and workplaces.
It's important to keep in mind that this training is just a model. It's adaptable for very specific differences or different businesses, different corporations. You can take it and use it in your classroom. You can take it and use it for your own human resources purposes.
And once when you're finished, go ahead and hold it up in the air and we'll collect them.
With children, or should be developed in like health classes, because obviously with a new idea about health classes, and also do you think it will make it more difficult because a lot of schools get state funding because they teach abstinence free like abstinence health classes, so like how would a school overcome that?
I'm not sure if students, depending on the age obviously, should go through like what we developed as allied training, just because like that activity is way
Stressing.
and it might push students further in the closet. Does that make sense? Just because of the weight of the activity. But I do think that it's significant to bring up LGBTQ+ issues, like Amanda was talking about during hers. Bring it up and just kind of make it as normal as heterosexuality in the classroom. If that answers your question. Any other questions? Thank you so much. also have a survey. Is that everyone's? So the purpose of this survey, as you can see at the top of it, it said, what are your feelings towards LGBTQ plus people? So the purpose of this is kind of just to gauge it's a reflective thing, to kind of see where you stand and make you think about things you might not have thought about before you took the survey. So now we're going to actually go into our ally training. While you were taking the quiz, I passed out a little packet to everyone. This is a packet that we put together for important things for allies to keep in mind. And as you can see on the agenda that Laura passed out a little bit earlier, usually we go through a welcoming little thing to establish some ground rules, talk about the security of the space and that it's a safe space. And then we'd go into the packet talking about what a safe zone is, what's an ally, and then the activities below. So just to touch on your packet, if you want to look through it with me. The very first thing is, what is an ally? And the packet will discuss what an ally is, and we would discuss with the group that we were working with the benefits of being an ally, what it means to be an ally, and what are the components of ally development. So moving on to the next page, it also includes various suggestions for reducing homophobia in your environment and other suggestions for creating inclusive campus environments. And these are materials that have been used for various conferences and things like that we gathered. And our sources for all this information can be found at the end on our source slide. But there's also a little terminology quiz in there. It's another self-reflective thing, like where do I stand with understanding the LGBTQ plus community. And then we'd go into discussing this more and the different terms and why there are so many terms and what each term means. And then we also attached some LGBTQ plus resources for collegiate organizations, for advocacy organizations, for coming out and learning about sexual orientation. There's a bunch of resources in there to answer any questions that you might have. And we thought it was important to include that because being an ally is very difficult, and understanding what it means and what the community goes through, and it's hard to kind of visualize that, which is why we include the resources in a little dictionary glossary at the end of the packet. So one of the biggest things that comes with being an ally is having empathy for the community and having empathy for the struggles that they go through. So one of the things that we've done to create empathy and kind of run a simulation for empathy is this activity that we've done before called Coming Out Stars. Some of you may have done this activity before, and we've kind of taken it and adapted it to being effective in a workplace ally training environment. So without further ado, we're going to let Marissa go ahead and take us through this.
Okay, so everyone's going to get a star. They're all different. We'll kind of pass them out randomly. And you're going to be writing on it, so make sure you have a pen or a pencil out.
Just out of curiosity while I'm passing these out, raise your hand if you've done this activity before. Oh, cool. I thought it'd be more people.
This is going to be interesting.
Emily, can you close the door, please?
Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you have 5 points on your stars. Each point is going to have something different written on it. So we're going to first start off with putting your name in the middle. This represents you. On the first point of your star, you're going to write a name of a close friend. It can be your best friend, it can be someone you trust. On the second point, you're going to write of a community to which you belong. So it could be church, it could be dance team, it could be anything that you associate with. On your third point, you will write a specific family member's name. So it can be your mom, dad, sister, brother. On the fourth point, you will write the job of which you aspire to have. And on the last point, you will write shortly your hopes and dreams. And when you're finished, if we could have everybody stand in a circle.
Like inside the tables?
Yep.
Make the circle so you're kind of like shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, we want to be closest and very.
You can have some elbow room, but
Yeah, elbow to shoulder is good.
kind of close it up here.
Yeah.
Dr. Haddix, I'm going to turn this.
Yeah. All right, we ready? Okay. You are now in the minority in relation to sexual orientation or gender identity, and you are about to begin your coming out process. During this process, I ask you not to talk. You decide that it will be easiest to tell your friends first, since they have always been there for you in the past, and you want them to know. If you have a blue star, your friend has no problem with it. Your friend has suspected for some time, and thanks you for sharing. Luckily, your friend acts no different towards you, accepts you for who you are. If you have a white or green star, your friend is rather hesitant. Your friend is a little irritated that you waited so long to share this information, but you are confident that soon this friend will understand that being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender is just a part of who you are. You just need to give this individual time. Please fold back this point of your star. If you have a red star, you are met with anger and disgust. This friend who has been by your side in the past tells you that being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender is wrong and cannot associate with anyone like that. If you have a red star, please tear off the side and drop it to the floor. This friend is no longer a part of your life. With most of you having such good luck with your friends, you decide to tell your family. So you turn to a family member who is closest to you first, so that it will be a little easier. If you have a green star, the conversation does not go exactly as planned, but after some lengthy discussion with this person who is close to you, seems a little more at ease with it. Fold back this point of your star, as this individual will be an ally, but only with time. If you have a blue star, you are embraced by this family member. Your family member is proud that you have decided to come out and let you know that this individual will always be there to support you. If you have a white or a red star, your family member rejects the thought of being related to a gay man, bisexual, lesbian, or transgender person. Much like some of your friends, this individual is disgusted, and some of you are thrown out or even disowned. You are a part of the approximate 40% of homeless youth who identify as gay, lesbian, or bisexual. If you have a white or a red star, please tear off the side and drop it to the ground. Having told some of your friends and family the wheels have started to turn, and soon members of your community begin to become aware of your sexual orientation or gender identity. If you have a green or a blue star, your sexual orientation or gender identity is accepted by your community. They continue to embrace you like anyone else, and together you celebrate the growing diversity in your community. If you have a white star, you are met with a mixed response. Some accept you, and some do not know how to think. You remain a part of this community, and with time, you will fit in as you once did. If you have a white star, please fall back this side. If you have a red star, your community reacts with hatred. They tell you that someone like you does not belong in their community. Those who have supported you in your times of need no longer speaks to you or acknowledges you. If you have a red star, tear this point off and drop it to the ground. You have heard rumors that have started circulating at work regarding your sexual orientation or gender identity. In the past, you have made a point to confront these rumors as soon as they begin, but now you are not sure if that will do more harm than good. Unfortunately, you do not have the chance. If you have a blue star, your coworkers begin to approach you and let you know that they have heard the rumors and that they do not care. They support you. Your bosses react the same way, letting you know that you do good work and that is all that matters. If you have a green star, your workplace has become quite interesting. Everyone seems to think that you are gay or transgender, even though you have not mentioned it to anyone or confirmed any of the rumors. Some people speak to you less, but the environment has not seemed to change drastically. If you have a green star, please fold back this point. If you have a red or a white star, you continue to go to work as nothing is happening, ignoring the rumors that have spread throughout your workplace. One day, you come in to find your office has been packed up. You are called into the office, and your boss explains to you that you are being fired. When you ask why, your boss tells you that the organization had to make some cutbacks in your area. If you have a red or a white star, please tear off this point and throw it to the ground. Now your future lay ahead of you as a gay man, bisexual, lesbian, or transgender person. Your hopes and dreams, your wishes for a perfect life, for some of you, these are all that remain. If you have a green, blue, or white star, these hopes and dreams are what keep you going. Most of you have met with some sort of rejection during your coming out process, but you have managed to continue to live happy, healthy. Your personal hopes and dreams become a reality. If you have a red star, you fall into despair. You have met with rejection after rejection, and you find it impossible to accomplish your lifelong goals without the support of your friends and family. You become depressed, and with nowhere else to turn, you begin to abuse alcohol and drugs. Eventually, you feel that your life is no longer worth living. If you have a red star, please tear it up and drop the pieces to the ground. You are part of the 30% of teenage suicide victims who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. Okay. After participating in this activity, how did it make you feel about the coming out process?
I would say I didn't realize that it was as high as 30%. having done this activity before, it was interesting because I was on the other end of the spectrum. So like I was one of the ones who like had like almost every point of their star taken off by the end the first time I did it, and now I didn't have any. And I remember like how emotional it was, and I wasn't even somebody that was like going through that, and it was emotional for me to like to tear off like people that I know that would support me if I came out. So I think like now seeing this, and I'm like, this is a more, to me, I think like this represents what I would hope would happen in my life, but it's not always the case.
For those who had to rip off points or had to fold back in points, how did that make you feel?
It was sad because growing up, like my parents are very accepting and my friends are very accepting. So like I would expect to have a star like Kayla's, but I had to rip mine up. So like seeing how like I don't put myself in other people's shoes, I guess, especially in this kind of circumstance. So it was really put it into perspective.
I know, like for me, like a big part of my life is like my future career and where I want to end up, like in the world, and having to fold that back just because of like my sexual orientation would be like very, very hard for me.
I know just by me reading the activity and reading the script, it makes me very emotional to see like everybody go through something different. And like I feel like this activity really does a really good job of simulating the coming out process and all the different ways that it can happen and the effects that it can have on a certain person.
I guess it's kind of interesting too how like I look at like mine and how I started with 5 points and now I only have 2, and it almost feels like that's all you have to lean on. That's all like your full trust is in, and that's kind of like interesting. It's like the 2 people that were closest to you, and I put like your family member, close friend. Like those ones are kind of like bad.
Well, so one of the ones I had to tear off was my profession, which is professor. And so I was thinking, well, but here we have a non-discrimination clause and I have tenure, but there are places where I work that do not have such protections, and so it is a reality that some people coming out would lose their, especially since I'm in religious studies.
That said, everybody can have a seat.
For the people thinking of the janitors.
All right, so one of the biggest things about this activity is that it is a simulation and not just an activity. So it's one of the most important things about this activity in particular for ally training is it, like I said, it's important to give the participant a certain amount of empathy, because when you can stand in the shoes of someone, when you can empathize with them, it makes you more likely to be more tolerant and accepting of people from those different backgrounds. So moving forward, we're going to...
So if we were to do this in real life, we would actually, after this, do a post survey, the exact same one that we gave you, to see if your views and opinions change. And that way, also, just for standpoint and financial, we would have data to back that our training sessions do work.
All right, so just to debrief kind of everything that we've been talking about, the reason we think that all of our disciplines kind of tie together for this ally training is, like Amanda and Laura talked about with education, and mine with the legal policy, and Marissa's with the human resources aspect of it. And then we chose to particularly do this with the staff of the Alliance Hospital to fit with exercise science and how they feel in like medical areas and gym areas and things like that. So we did ally training because it's important for staffs to understand the different backgrounds. And we just talked about this with The Spirit Catches You, how hard it was to kind of make sure everyone was getting the same treatment because there was language barriers and things like that. So by doing these allied trainings for employees, we would kind of increase the understanding between the two, so that everyone was getting treated fairly, not being discriminated against, and getting access to the various things that they need.
So without a doubt, this was definitely an interdisciplinary approach to this, our action plan. For example, it would be up to the political science field to make the laws and policies that require these trainings in all different types of businesses. And then within the exercise science and sports business fields, they can also create the policies that require the training, and they also can provide insight on the current beliefs and trends of the types of harassment and discrimination the LGBTQ+ community faces, especially since there is high levels of this occurring in those fields due to those pressures to follow along with the gender stereotypes. And they can also provide the initial groups of people to go through these types of trainings, since, as I just said, that there are high levels. And then finally, the education can provide methods and strategies, and all of these combined can make an impact on the safety and security of the LGBTQ population, with the anticipated results of the amounts and the types of discrimination and harassment significantly decreasing in the workplace and overall creating a safer place for all to be.
Does anyone have any questions? Emily?
You guys mentioned that research in that research in 2011 showed that a lot of LGBTQ people don't have health care, which might be related to the fact that a lot of people don't get health care until they're married because they're not really worried about it until then. So do you believe that the recent passing of legal gay marriage will change their health care?
In particular, I think that the biggest component of LGBT and healthcare is the T part, and the reason they don't seek healthcare is because they can't often find physicians that support their gender and what they're going through. But I do think that with the change in legalization of same-sex marriage, since marriage is such a huge part of health benefits and everything like that, I think that it will increase a significant amount. Tim?
Is there, as part of the Ally Training Program, is there any kind of ongoing thing that makes sure that it's not just like, say you take the survey and you have kind of an emotional response, you're thinking about that at that moment, but is there anything in place to make sure that those conversations are continuing to happen and that they're maintaining kind of that belief, I guess?
We didn't come up with anything in particular about that, but there's no reason why we couldn't.
And I think it would also be up to each individual business, especially like the policies put in place to continually reinforce these concepts and these ideas, and maybe even provide more training or follow-up training if they do notice an increase of harassment and discrimination instances.
Yeah, I just saw a study, it was talking about canvassing door to door about attitudes towards transgender and laws relating to that, and they did an immediate pre and post, and then they did a follow-up, and it actually had lasting impact on people's attitudes.
Follow-up would be really helpful for scientists too.
We didn't mention, I'm sorry. Our funding would definitely come from either government or from the businesses themselves hiring us or trained professionals to come in and do these sessions.
So is same-sex marriage legal in all 50 states now, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
There is a distinction between gay marriage, as some people call it, and same-sex marriage, because gay would just refer to two men getting married, whereas same-sex is no matter what sex